Welcome to a new episode of Art Matters. I'm your host, Wayne Quackenbush, and today I'll be interviewing two artists, artistic types. The first person that we'll be speaking with is Cindy Killavey, and Cindy is a performer, actor, actress, magician's assistant.
Voice talent, mother, wife.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And
delighted to be here.
We've known each other for a while now.
Yeah, it took you long enough.
worked in different capacities. You're my first performer, so we don't have the usual kind of show and tell, even though we'll get to that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have stories that go back a while about your different career paths.
Yes, in second grade I was an orange.
Okay.
And my first line was, "So you called me sour, did you, Paul? My brother's lemon and grapefruit may be sour, but I'm not."
And
that was, then I went on hiatus.
And you had that one line?
Well, I had more than that, but that's the only line I remember.
Okay, no, that's great.
And then I was really very shy and quiet and retiring through most of my school years. It wasn't until I graduated and I was working at an insurance company in Hartford. They had a glee club, a women's and men's chorus, and I was in that. And someone showed up from the Insurance City Entertainment Bureau and said, we'd like you to come and do shows at nursing homes and prisons, and sure. So we did that, and that's where I met Malcolm the Magnificent and became his lovely assistant, Cindy.
Malcolm
Ta-da!
the Magnificent, the magician.
Yes.
Yes.
And then a man by the name of John Sleiben came to one of our choir rehearsals and said they'd like to do a musical. They'd like to do My Fair Lady. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was taking voice lessons at the Hartford Conservatory. The insurance company was here. Here was the cathedral. Here was the Hartford Conservatory. So I would go from one to the other. And they started a musical theater program. So I was taking classes in drama and ballet and character dance and tap and musical theater and eurythmics and piano. So naturally, I went from being a full-time employee to being an hourly employee.
Oh, yeah.
And I auditioned for My Fair Lady, and I was cast as Eliza.
Oh, wow.
And then they did Sound of Music, and I auditioned a different director, and I was cast as Maria. And then the conservatory did Once Upon a Mattress, and I was Winifred the Woebegone. And then a company came to the conservatory, the Lyric Theater Company, and they were doing shows in Newport, Rhode Island. Where the heck is that?
Right.
And I auditioned, and I got the role of the comic female lead, the soubrette, in the 1912 Victor Herbert musical, Mademoiselle Modiste. So I came down to Newport. They put us up in a mansion. Mm-hmm. And
was it one of the real mansions?
It was a pretty fancy house, but it wasn't one of the preservation properties.
Now, where was the Lyric Theater then?
The Lyric Theater was performed at the Casino Theater.
Oh, okay. So that's up on Bellevue Avenue?
Behind the Casino Restaurant,
right,
and the Tennis Hall of Fame. And at the read-through, which was at the house, the man playing the comic male lead never showed up. So the understudy, Jim Killavey, came into the role. Mm-hmm. And so Jim played my husband in Mademoiselle Modiste, and the following April we were married for real. So here's a shot of us in Mademoiselle Modiste, in costume. And then, here's us in real life.
Less than a year later.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right. Of course, he had a lot of money in the show.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, but he was only a teacher, but hey. He acted, and we've been in many shows together over the years, separately and singly. In fact, a couple of years ago, I was a female Scrooge in A Christmas Carol on the dinner train at the same time that he was a male Scrooge at a staged reading at the Edward King House Senior Center
Oh, wow.
in their black box theater.
Wow.
And although he's been a little out of the spotlight lately, he's living with pancreatic cancer.
Right.
He and I were able to be in 2 shows at the Newport Dinner Theater last year. We were in Spreading It Around, and we were in a show called Ghost of a Chance. And I do have a picture of that cast. Can you get that? You got it?
He's got it.
All right.
Yep, you can see on the screen over there.
And this is the very first show I did at the Newport Dinner Theater when Jim and I were also in that cast. That was many years ago.
And what was that play again?
That one was called Cheaters, and I was the cheating wife. But currently I'm in a show at the dinner theater called Lend Me a Soprano.
Yeah, you have to explain the backstory to that because that's pretty interesting.
The man who wrote that also wrote a show called Lend Me a Tenor that they did a number of years ago, and I was in that. And although Lend Me a Soprano, now all the women have the power roles.
Oh, you have to explain what Lend Me a Tenor was and then how it shifted to sopranos.
Okay, Lend Me a Tenor is about an opera company where a fiery Italian tenor shows up, has a fight with his wife. She leaves. He gets all depressed and takes too many of his phenobarbital pills, some with assistance from somebody who wants to keep him there, and falls asleep. They think he's dead. So now the meek and mild assistant to the manager winds up putting on the costume and taking the role that night on stage.
Of the tenor.
Of the tenor.
Right.
But then they come back afterwards, and of course the original tenor has awakened.
Right.
And fled, tried to break into the theater, telling them he was the one that was supposed to be on stage, but they didn't believe him. And so, you know, it's a farce, so madcap, running around, slamming doors, and lots of humor.
Sure, but then Lend Me a Soprano is the same story, except it's a gender reversal.
Right. And the same character, Julia,
yes,
chairwoman of the Opera Guild, is there.
You played the same part
I
in both.
did. I auditioned, and they gave me the same role. It's a lot of fun. Great cast.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, one of the hats you wore was, or wear, is the Portsmouth Community Theater?
Yes, with Priscilla Wimpress and Rebecca Vickers. We started that a number of years ago.
Right.
And although we're kind of been laying low since I've been caretaker for my husband,
Sure.
We have done some historical shows. We did Gloria Schmidt and a friend of hers did research on the graves at St. Mary's Episcopal Church.
Right.
And we had a show, a play called Voices from the Churchyard.
Now, weren't those the people kind of resurrected, the people from the churchyard resurrected?
Well, it was just them being there, telling their story.
Right.
There was a Titanic survivor. There was a Vanderbilt, a military man. Lots of interesting stories that Gloria and her friend, whose name I forget, I apologize, did the research and put them together, and I kind of made it into a play.
We had actual plans of performing in that cemetery, but for various reasons could not pull it off.
No, that was the St. Paul's.
Oh,
that was the second Voices from the Churchyard.
So you did get to do the St. Mary's performance.
We did, yes. We had a full house.
Yeah.
And very well received. In fact, the woman who started St. Mary's, Sarah Gibbs, I think her name is. We also had her story, and the minister played that part.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was great. And since that time, we've also written a show called Voices from Butts Hill. We're involved with that nonprofit organization that's the Revolutionary War site up in the north end of Portsmouth. Little known, behind the high school.
I'm not aware of that. What's the story behind that?
Well, it was a very, very important fort during the Revolutionary War and the Battle of Rhode Island.
Yeah, but where of the Battle of Rhode Island?
The person in charge was a Sullivan. And because it was high ground, it was a perfect spot. You could see 3 hills, Turkey Hill and this hill and that hill, so you could see the British coming. And it was a hard-fought battle that unfortunately they didn't have a victory that day. In fact, they had to depart because there were more troops coming and they would have been overwhelmed.
Sure.
And they departed safely through not Harper's Ferry, but one of the other ferries. Everybody got out okay.
Right.
And that was also the battle that had the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, also known as the Black Regiment, valiantly defending a site on the coastal towards
Bristol.
Jamestown, Bristol.
Yeah.
Yes, they.
Now, does this
their heroics were
tie into the British taking over Newport and occupying it?
Well, the British were already there.
Oh, okay.
This was when the French showed up, and they were going to be, there enough troops and ships that they thought they could be successful, but there was a horrible storm that damaged both the French fleet and the British fleet.
Right.
And the French fleet took off to
French,
Boston
the French were
for
our
repairs.
allies. They were here to fight the British.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very, very interesting. I'm learning more and more about the history of the island, which is immense.
Now, did you do anything with the Hutchinson?
Yes, we've worked with the people that do the commemoration of the Hutchinson, Ann Hutchinson group. We've written something.
I know that not many people know that there's a site, a memorial for her in Portsmouth.
Yes, the Patriots Park, I think it's called.
It's kind of tucked away, and
Yeah.
I've talked to many people who've never even heard of it before.
Yeah, and that may have been where some of the first settlers moved to because of the stream there.
Oh, okay.
I think originally they were about over in Common Fence Point.
Yeah.
But then they moved, and then at a later time, everybody got land grants, one for your house and one for you to have a farm.
Sure.
And people realized that they really wanted to live on their farms, because they were working them all the time. So
Right.
they started moving away and building up Portsmouth, and then the whole merchant group moved down to Newport because of the deep water harbor.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Ann Hutchinson's a fascinating character. I mean,
Yes.
And controversial to this day. I mean, I've read people who say that she was schizophrenic, hallucinating, and then other people who thought that she was a proto-feminist, I guess you'd say, that she was, maybe that's...
Well, she's not around here to defend herself.
No,
so.
I know, but, it's endlessly fascinating to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at this point, our time is running short.
I know.
And I'm really so happy to have you here, and it's
Thank
been
you.
wonderful, and it's nice to reconnect with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.
And have a nice holiday season.
Oh, yes, you too, and good luck with your performances.
Thank you.
Okay, we're here with our second artist, Jen Beirola, artist, tattooist, sign painter.
I'm not a sign. I'm interested in sign painting,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we only met a couple days ago, so it's pretty incredible that you were able to get here on such short notice. You were participating in a show that I co-curated at the Common Fence Point Community Center. And first of all, how did you hear about the show? Do you live over there?
Yeah, I live in Common Fence Point,
Oh,
and I just
okay.
happened to see it come up probably on a Facebook page.
Oh, you did?
And yeah,
Okay.
I just reached out to you, and I was trying to figure out what pieces would work well for the community, and I thought like that.
Yeah, but
I'd
you
do
walked.
a wide range of things.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you literally walked in with a giant whale,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Wow, this is pretty amazing!" And it was done in the kind of. It looked like carved wood, a large carved wood whale, and you had hand lettering across it. I can't remember what it says because it was all a blur. And then I was astonished at how light it was. So we're going to talk about how you achieved that at some point, but let's get back to what inspired you to go into the direction of being an artist?
I've always done art. It's been like since my first memories of finger painting. I've just always, it's kind of the only thing that I ever liked in school, you know, like
Sure.
no matter what medium it was, I was just always.
Did you like coloring books?
I did, yeah.
And did you color inside the lines or did you go outside?
I'm not sure. Probably, and I think I was pretty particular actually. I think I was like really into like trying to shade things and
Being
make them
accurate?
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's fun. And then you had a stint in the service, right? The Air Force?
Yeah, I was in the Air Force.
And then you came out of the Air Force and you were able to go to art school. Mm-hmm. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'd always, I feel like my whole school career, I'd always just planned to go to art school, and then at the end of it, it wasn't an option because art school is expensive, and my grades were terrible except for, and everything except for art.
Except for art.
So, but, I did manage to graduate, and it took a little while, but then I figured out the Air Force was, the Air Force is kind of the path that I chose. So they said that they had a graphic design program in there, and so I joined as a jet mechanic, and then was hoping to cross train over into the graphic design field, but that just didn't work out exactly the way it should have. But instead, I ended up getting a tattoo apprenticeship while I was active duty. And then that kind of took me on a
that's the
whole different direction.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow. So a tattoo apprenticeship in the military?
Yeah, so before 9/11, we had a lot of extra time, and they were letting us go early to go take college classes.
Oh, wow.
And so I did a little bit of that, but there wasn't any, I was out in Omaha, Nebraska, and there wasn't any art schools out there. It wasn't what I planned for art school.
Right.
But I took a bunch of classes, and then I had made a proposal that what if I could find someone to apprentice me, if they would give me the same time off. And they agreed, and I found someone, and it's kind of.
Were there high demand for tattoos in Nebraska and the?
It's a pretty. The cost of living's really good out there, so people
Sure.
have a lot of expendable income.
Yep.
It was before it got flooded. It was right before the TV shows that I got my foot in the door.
Right.
And yeah, it was a cool time. I got to, it was sort of like the end of the '90s, so lots of tribal and chrome,
Oh,
things
sure.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then you went to art school. A different form of school,
Yeah,
right?
so I had always wanted to go to art school, and my friends thought I was crazy. When I finally went to art school, I moved back here. I was like 40, and they're like, so I had owned a business before I went to art school, and so my friends thought I was crazy. I was like selling my business to go work for someone else and go to college. They were like, what? But I just always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And so I
Oh,
did
that's
that.
exciting.
And, yeah, no,
Now,
back here.
you have here, there are some woodcuts. You can probably start showing them too.
Yeah, so this is pretty much like,
You got to hold that up so that Myris can
this one's actually linoleum, but
put it flat down and hold it up perpendicular. And then we were talking earlier, you said that you use a single piece of plywood and you're able to get the effect of the line in it, which I always thought that you needed something that was a little finer grain, but you got some good detail, and you use.
yeah. Well, this one's actually linoleum.
Oh, it's a linoleum block. I didn't
yeah.
realize they made those
Yeah,
that
like
big.
that guy up there is.
Okay, we can get over
sorry.
to that one,
Yeah.
Myris.
This guy up here is wood, and it's just just a piece of plywood, and then we would seal it with like a polyurethane with a little stain on it, and then carve into it. And you just really have to be like so mindful of what direction you're carving. And I felt like this stuff kind of translated to tattooing, how it was like a natural texture. You know, you can't just like do anything with skin. It has limitations. And I found that the wood blocks have pretty transferable to that, where you had to pay
Now,
attention.
you make a surfaces that kind of help retain the what's the best word? Well, again, the surface is held together by the polyurethane.
No, it just makes it flat. You know, because I think that I think if you were to roll. If you were just to like roll the ink on it, the wood would soak it all in and wouldn't be able to get the print.
It's to make a resist.
Yeah.
Right, so that the ink stays on top of the surface.
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't hold together the wood at all. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it just keeps it's kind of like putting Vaseline over the skin before you tattoo on it. You just wipe the ink away instead of.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, you said that when you were a kid, you were kind of inspired in a way by the culture, graffiti, right?
Yeah.
And breakdancing and things like that. And was that exciting for you to think that you could, you know, you were talking about your younger days of trying to tag stuff?
Yeah, just wasn't. It was before the internet, so I didn't know about the tips and what how to make the paint do what you wanted to.
I'm sure
so.
a lot of our audience doesn't even know what you mean by the tips, right? Because they make markers with different size tips.
Well, there's spray cans. You know, if you just go
those
to
tips, yeah.
if you just go to like True Value or Home Depot and buy one of those paint cans and try and do something, it doesn't work out so well. And I couldn't figure it out, but it's so I would just draw a lot of graffiti.
Yeah.
But like what I needed to do is to be like taking the tips off other cans and sticking them on there, and then that's how they would get different lines.
Oh, really? Is that
Yeah.
how it works?
Yeah.
See, I'm an apprentice.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I would do things like, you know, paint the back of the garage. I mean, it's like it just never worked out for me. But I would draw a lot of graffiti. And
but you were attracted to it because it was a way to express yourself, right?
Right.
And get your name out there.
Yeah.
You can show.
So that was all kind of experimental. This was stuff while I was in art school where we made the paper and would print over it.
And what was this again? Was this linoleum?
I think that one. No, this one. This one. Yeah, this one I think might have been linoleum too.
And it was. Did you cut? Yeah, you cut the.
Yeah, you still
surface
carve
out?
it out. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you were telling me a story about sign painters and how you were fascinated by old-timey signs, right?
Right. Yeah. So I ended up buying the business that I apprenticed for, and with that you need signs. And I had a sign painter come in from Las Vegas. He just showed up and he was like, "I'll paint your windows for X amount of money," and I was like, "Well, I can just get vinyl and do that." And then he really opened my eyes to that whole thing. It was like so cool. He pinstriped everything, and just it has so much soul. And
the warmth of hand lettering and all that.
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
Yeah, and I didn't really know that much about it before. But then once I learned about it, I took a deep dive in it, and he let me paint. He helped me like paint this big sign. We refurbished this old neon sign, and I just got really into that. And then I guess I also realized that a lot of the old tattooers, like the guy that taught me and stuff, they were sign painters before they were tattooers, and they got into tattooing because vinyl took over the sign painting industry.
Yeah, because everything is designed by computer, and then, I mean, even before there were computers, were they cutting vinyl and then doing it that way, like hand cutting it, or?
I don't think so. I mean, they might have been, but I think
I know it's
like,
very prevalent now. Everybody uses vinyl, except for the guys that you were talking, the local guy who still does hand painted signs.
Yeah, and it's crazy. They're trying to get their same money for vinyl signs as they are for. I had a guy come in. letter the window at my business that I have now, and he did it with the guy from Boston. He did all gold. It took like 2 weeks. There was so many. It was like this huge process, and it's beautiful. And he charged me pretty much like the same amount that someone wanted for just a little vinyl sign.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I can't get my head around someone who does signs that could be this big or, this big, getting down to skin.
Yeah.
Like how does that work?
Well, I didn't really do. I don't know. I mean,
No, I was saying
I
you
dabbled.
did,
I dabbled, but
yeah, you said that you've seen sign painters go into tattooing, and that's
yeah.
what I can't get my head around.
yeah, I don't know. I guess it's. I'm not
I mean,
really
there's
sure.
a precision. I mean, I had aspirations when I was much younger of being a tattoo artist, but inflicting pain is not my thing.
Right.
Inflicting ink, right? Anyway, so you have a tattoo parlor now, right? Mm-hmm,
yes.
But we still have to talk about quickly.
Oh, the whales.
talk
Yeah.
about-
So the signs. This is kind of how these guys started coming around. I was looking into the hand carved signs. And
is this the
and so they
beginning?
started as sign blanks. Yeah. So that was kind of how they started.
So this is some sort of foam?
So this is like a thin wood, and then there's a foam on it, and then there's like a marine epoxy, and it's a bunch of steps. I wanted them to be able to be outside.
Oh, sure. So they could weather, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's you start with the wood background, and then you have the foam on, and then you carve the foam.
Yeah, and I carved the foam, and then I put the epoxy on it, and it's just a bunch of sculpting, and I don't know. They've taken on now they've got eyeballs and teeth.
Now you've added teeth.
Yeah, so this is the type of foam. I
sure you
brought
found all
some that
those-
were. This one's not finished, so I figured I'd bring this so you could kind of see like what the method
Now
is.
the one I saw was probably 3 or 4 times the size of this one, and then you had this beautiful hand lettering across the
Yeah.
face of it. It looked like it could have
Thank
been
you.
from the 19th century.
Yeah, that's what I wanted it to look like. So I like just old hand done things.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean,
This is like the second generation here. We're starting to figure out teeth.
the coloring, right? Yeah. And would you smooth this again to get the surface that you want for the lettering, or if you?
So what happened was, I made them as sign blanks, and then when I started doing stuff on them, people were like, "Oh, that's sad. You're taking away from the whale." And then so I started. I don't know. The
Just
whales
making
just kinda-
whales?
yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, this wasn't that bad. I really appreciate you coming over here on such short notice, and thank
you for having me.
Sure. Thanks for being on the show. It was a real pleasure. I'm really glad that you're able to share your stuff.
Thank you.
All right. And that wraps up another episode of Art Matters. I'm Wayne Quackenbush, your host, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.